Luke tailgates people.
I do not tailgate people.
He does.
I
He
got
tailgates.
rear-ended, so
No.
I wasn't the one that... Welcome to Real with the Rangels. I'm Luke. I'm here with Jessica. And in this podcast, we talk about all things life. Really just the hard conversations that most people don't want to have, but has affected our lives, and I think it's good to talk about. And so this first season, we're talking everything anxiety and OCD. So last episode, if you missed it, we talked about her childhood, how she was brought up, and just kind of tips for parents if their child is going through anxiety. So if you missed that episode, go back, watch, listen to that one. And if it did help you at all, please help us share this message with other people. It could be a share, could be subscribe, or leaving a review. So today, we're going to kind of pick up of where we left off, going into our dating life. And so kind of the first thing that comes to my mind, a lot of people ask me what it was like during our dating phase. And my response is always, so it's kind of a question for you, is I don't know, like throughout I always say like, I feel like maybe you tricked me type of thing. But I always say, like, I don't know if she ever showed she had anxiety or OCD while we're dating, or if I was just not a good enough guy to realize it and help you through it. So I'll let you answer that.
No, yeah, it's funny. I definitely didn't trick you, maybe a little. But back when we were dating, I was in a totally different phase of my life, where anxiety and OCD comes in waves. And that was a time in my life where I just wasn't affected as much by it. It was before I had a kid. It was before the stress of like being an adult. I still lived at home. I didn't have bills. I was just in a totally different phase. So back then I didn't have the kind of anxiety I have now. I did have it, but I guess it just wasn't as bad at the time. I was on a different medication at that time. It was just a totally different phase of my life. And I even talked to my psychologist about it. I wish I could go back to that time where I felt not anxious, but I can't. And so we kind of go through like, how come I didn't feel anxious at this time? What can I do to kind of get myself a little bit back to that time? But again, I didn't have a kid. I didn't have a husband. It was like dating and, like you're like in the honeymoon phase and everything's rainbows and stuff. So I think it was just a different phase of my life.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
And you probably didn't know. I do know I did have anxiety. There were things I think back on, but like you were when we started dating, you were 25. Mm-hmm. You didn't. A 25-year-old doesn't even probably think about that, At
least not when we were 25. I do remember there was the first time that I think felt like it triggered everything while we were dating was the car crash.
Oh, yeah, you're right. That definitely. That's when Luke tailgates people.
I do not tailgate people.
He does.
I got rear-ended, so I wasn't the one that tailgated.
We were on the freeway, and he was tailgating someone. And if he hadn't been tailgating them, we wouldn't have hit them.
We didn't hit them. The people behind us hit us.
So someone behind us hit us.
See.
And we hit the car in front of us. But we should not have been that close to the car in front of us. And so that definitely triggered something in me. And I still, to this day, I've gotten a lot better.
Way better.
Yeah. Really? Oh, good. I did not let him drive forever after that. I've been the driver. He's the passenger princess because I'm so scared of that we're going to get in a car accident. And he's gotten a lot better at tailgating. He used to, when we were dating and young, he'd get, annoyed at me because I'd be that backseat driver. And now he understands, he's like, babe, I have 10 car lengths in front of me. We're not going to hit anyone. So it's gotten better, but that definitely triggered something.
Yeah, that was kind of the big thing. But then, so it was really just driving that I remember. Even after we got married, I don't know if there was too much anxiety other than the normal
I think I had anxiety where I remember my parents told me I had to go home because I'd still want to sleep at my house a lot of the time. I had a really hard time letting go of my mom. And I'd go, like, we lived in Brea. My parents lived in Glendora. And do you remember, like, I'd go and be like, I'm just going to stay at my parents. And finally my mom was like, you have a husband, you have to go home. I wasn't used to that. I wanted to be home still. So that was kind of hard for me.
Maybe. But I feel like and then we had our daughter.
Pregnancy triggered everything.
Okay.
That's wouldn't you say? Pregnancy triggered, like,
Yeah.
that's when it got real bad. Real bad.
How? Explain that. Refresh my memory.
Well, we had gotten pregnant, and I was terrified that I was going to have a miscarriage. And I ended up having a miscarriage at about 7 weeks. And it was, like, devastating for me. And I was, like, depressed for a while. And after that, we got pregnant. I had my miscarriage in October, and then we got pregnant right before we found out I was pregnant on your birthday in February, so a couple months later. Mm-hmm. And I was so scared I was going to have another miscarriage. I could not enjoy anything. We were at the hospital so many times because I thought I had a miscarriage, and it was just, like, overwhelming. I was so sick my entire pregnancy. It was just awful. Birth was super traumatic. Tegan almost died during my labor. They had to do an emergency C-section and everything. It was just too much mentally for me. And keep in mind, I was off my medication at this time, and I think that played a huge role. I had a couple panic attacks while I was pregnant, and it was terrifying because I couldn't take anything for it. And it was miserable. Then I ended up getting post-preeclampsia, which was more traumatic. It was just one thing after another, and that's why we have one kid. I am high risk because of the preeclampsia, and I mentally could not go through pregnancy again. I'd end up in, I seriously think I might end up in, like, a loony bin because I couldn't do it. So that is why we have one kid. People ask.
Yeah, especially because I remember we were still planning on having another kid when Tegan was like 2 or 3 years old.
We started talking about it.
And then it was either try for another kid or get you on meds.
We got on meds, and I think he had a hard time. He wanted another kid. Mm-hmm. But then once he saw me on, not that you can't have a kid while you're on medication, it's just, it is higher risk. And with my anxiety, it would be, my psychiatrist said, if something did end up happening, I would blame myself the rest of my life. It's not for us. And he just got a vasectomy a month ago, 2 months ago.
Sure. Because I don't know why that's important.
Because you finally came to terms, like, you were finally okay with not having another kid.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think that was hard for you for a little bit.
Yeah.
So with us having one kid, I get a lot of people who ask us why we don't have another kid. And then I also do get people who are like, well, it's not fair. She's going to be the only kid. She's not going to have siblings, blah, blah, blah. And I probably used to say things like that before I had a kid, not thinking. But just like a PSA going through it, people don't know what someone's going through. You want to understand, like, this is what's best for us. And so if you have one kid and people make remarks like that, just remember, like, God knows what's best for you, and people can, judge and say whatever they want. But for us and our family, I think having one kid's perfect. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree.
But how did it feel for you, like, watching me go through anxiety? Because I know you're, like, the least anxious person. Your family's really chill. Like, you've never probably seen this until me. So for, like, men out there or anyone out there who had to deal with this, what was that kind of like?
Yeah, so.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to this episode today. Just wanted to say thank you, and if this has helped you or you think it could help someone that you know, subscribe to our channel and leave a review because that also helps the algorithm. And we really want to reach as many people as we can to help them because this topic is so strong on my heart. And I really just want to help everyone who suffers with this because I feel like people aren't raw and real about these things sometimes. And I'm here to tell you all the messy, crazy thoughts that I've had. So if you think that this can help you or someone you know, keep watching. So let's get back to the episode. But how did it feel for you, like watching me go through anxiety? Because I know you're like the least anxious person.
So, kind of like I was just like, for me growing up, I never even heard of the word anxiety. I grew up with two older brothers. The only woman we hung out with was my mom, and she was more of a tomboy too. She grew up with four brothers, no sisters, lived on a farm doing farm stuff. So she was just kind of, yeah, more tough and had that German in her. So my first initial reaction of seeing anxiety or you telling me you feel anxious or anything like that is probably what the most guys would say that have never gone through it. Is just like just calm down. Like
The worst thing you could say.
I don't know if I've ever actually said it.
You have.
Maybe.
You're fine.
Yeah,
Everything's
I
okay.
probably said you're fine. Yeah, well, it's reassurance.
No, it's not.
But no, it took me probably a couple years.
10. We've been married almost 10, babe.
So it took me like 6 years, maybe 7.
Maybe 9.
Of understanding that's like something you couldn't control. Yeah, no, it was so it was definitely a huge learning experience for me of just understanding what anxiety was.
Would you say it was rough on our marriage?
It's hard. It's hard thinking back. Definitely at some points.
Did you want to leave? Did you want to get up
No.
and leave?
No, never had those feelings. Maybe thoughts, but not feelings. No, I think for most, I think the hardest part of any of it is, it's like, especially once you realize, or I guess both, like you see, like I see you going through a hard time, and it's like I want to be there for you, and then, but as it like keeps going on, and it's like day after day, month after month, it's like you start getting those selfish thoughts of like, it's like, yeah, I care about your feelings, but does anyone care about my feelings? Like I'm going through this with you. It's hard on me. No one's taking care of me. All that stuff. But then as those thoughts come into mind, it's like you feel bad because you're going through this and you can't control it.
But you're right, you're going through it too. It's not just one-sided.
Yeah, so it's just it's always it's a hard balance of just kind of figuring out those emotions, I guess.
Yeah, but I think that over the years of having to deal with this, like, we've come up with, some good solutions. We know how to handle it a lot better now.
Mm-hmm.
My psychologist has helped a ton with tools, and Luke's gotten so much better at being there. I know it was hard in the beginning because he didn't understand, but you've gotten so much better. I mean, he gets annoyed still here and there, but
Oh my God.
but he's human. But no, I definitely feel like you took your time to understand it, and you've gone with me to appointments, and like you put in the effort to try and understand, which a lot of people won't even do.
Yeah.
Coming from someone who also probably wasn't on board with like medication, he used to think you do not need medication. You can exercise and do these things, which, yeah, they'll help. But I think you've realized like medication is not bad.
Yeah, for me, I mean, not even just anxiety. It's always anytime someone has a problem, it's it's never the first thing I want to go to.
Right.
But I think people do need medication. But for me at the time, it's like you weren't eating healthy and you
Right.
weren't exercising. So it's like, let's try
Try those.
that with the medication.
Right. I mean, I used to eat fast food 5, 6 days a week. I didn't cook. Um, so I'm sure all that contributed to it. Then I went complete opposite. We'll get into that another time.
That's season 2.
Yeah, but yeah, so those things definitely help, but I needed something because it's a chemical imbalance in my brain, and I needed the medication to really balance me out. And once I did get on the right medication, I'm sure you saw a huge difference.
Yeah, I'd say yeah, definitely the medication. Yeah, you just smile more. Don't get mad at me so fast.
And I wasn't ever like depressed. I didn't have depression. It was just like on edge all the time, wouldn't you say?
Yeah,
And the panic attacks. It was just like,
yeah, just on edge, worried about everything. Flu season was the worst
oh my
time
gosh.
of our lives.
Yeah. I was on medication for COVID, so I was pretty good then.
Yeah. I'd say COVID was your best year.
But also COVID, don't even get on that. Um, but yeah, medication's been huge for me, and getting the right psychologist, um, he he changed my life, like probably more than the medication. So do you have any tips like for married people or people who are dating going through this? Like what's something that you think has helped us?
Um,
Oh my gosh, the cat.
let's see. I'd say the biggest, I don't know if it's even so that helped us, but helped me. Which, I mean, if you help yourself, then you can help others as well. Uh, One of the best things that everyone needs to find, no matter what the problem is, could be anxiety or anything, is find a group of people that you could talk about it with. So I think what helped me a lot was being a part of uh, a men's group with my church that we went, and it wasn't really like a Bible study or anything like that. Of course, it was Bible centered, but we just really just talked about our lives, what was going good in our lives, what was not going in our lives, what we need prayer for, and it was just cool just to being able to talk about it and to be real with people and not have any judgment or being scared someone might get mad at you for what you say or something like that, but then also get like real advice on how to handle different situations. So definitely having a group of people uh, is a great thing. Um, and then, yeah, I mean, going with like the whole faith aspect is just,
Sounds like so like the Christian answer, but like praying with your spouse like
mm-hmm.
makes the biggest difference, especially when I'm anxious. I'll just go up to Luke and be like, "Can you pray for me?" And he'll literally just come and like put his hands on me and pray for me, and there's nothing like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think prayer, if you're have faith or don't have faith, I'm finishing up a book on prayer right now, and it's just insane how just our Western civilization doesn't think much about prayer. It's like we'll pray for 5 seconds each day,
Or they'll say, "I'll pray for you," and they don't.
yeah, or a minute. But there's so much power in prayer. Like one example from the book, based on the scriptures, they kind of formulated, I guess, that Jesus prayed for 5 hours every single morning. Like as the disciples were sleeping, they woke up, they still saw him praying. But everything we see is like he would go heal a blind man and it took him 2 seconds or 15 seconds. And it's just like when you think about that, he would pray for 5 hours for a 15-second miracle.
Yeah.
And most people are praying for 30 seconds, hoping for
If that.
hoping for their life to completely change.
Yeah.
And it's just having the real faith to actually like pray and believe that change will happen instead of hoping it will happen.
And I know not everybody listening to this, maybe has faith, but I 1000%, 1,000,000% know if I didn't have number one, God, or a God centered marriage, or like a husband who is like the spiritual leader in our household, I wouldn't be where I am. I wouldn't have been able to get through this. I know we're going to talk about eating disorder and stuff another time, but just everything, like, I would not probably be, like, who knows if I would be here. Like, it's just, I wish everybody had that, you know?
Yeah.
And also just, I know people don't like talking about truth on, you know, like intimacy and things of those sorts. Everyone, you know, thinks that everyone's marriage is perfect and ours is far from perfect, but like I really don't have much to complain about. I feel like we have such a good marriage. But like we did struggle a ton with intimacy, and I know people don't talk about that. And so maybe in a later episode we can dive more into that. But if that's something that you guys, you know, maybe want to hear about, we can do an episode on that, because
Let us know in the comments.
I know that my psychologist gave us a ton of tips and they've truly helped, I think. And we're still working through things, but I feel like we've found a good groove.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to talk about that, because people don't talk about that, we're open with that. And also back to like the faith aspect, it's really crazy, and I don't know if people like take time to think about this, but like how God works everything out, and we want it to be like today or tomorrow when we pray about it. But it's so crazy to think about like the timeline of how my life has kind of worked out through what we've been through. Just, I think it was in 2018 you got baptized.
Sure.
Like that's, I feel like when you really started, like we've always been Christians and stuff, but like that's when he really started just to become a changed man. And he got baptized, and then he became a youth leader at the church. I don't remember when that was.
Probably 21-ish.
And he went on like this summer camp thing and came back, and that was like a turning point in our marriage. I think I was like, who the heck is this man? Like, I'm so in love with you, because I've never like seen this side of you. And he inspired me so much that I started really diving into my Bible. I recommitted my life and got baptized in 2020. Was it 2024? Are we in 2025? Yeah, in 2024.
Yeah.
Last January, I recommitted my life and got baptized. And it's just like all these steps. Then he became the youth pastor at our church. And it's like my mom would tell me, like, these things that you're going through, God is really going to use you guys. Like, it's just crazy to think about. Like, we pray for healing and all these things, but maybe like we have to remember, and it's hard for me, but like we're in this season for a reason, and like God's going to water us and things of that sort to help someone else. I don't know. It's just like really crazy to think about.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I remember, I still say that your anxiety going through that and still going through it has prepared me to be a pastor.
Yeah.
Because if I was a pastor before all this, like, I wouldn't have cared for people like I do.
Yeah.
Like, get over it type
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
But now I'm like empathetic towards like people are hurting. I'm like, oh.
And the fact that he's with youth is what's crazy, because like we say, we didn't even think about anxiety in our teen years, in our 20s. And now that's the norm. And so if like he wasn't here to go see it, like now he can help these youth. It's just, everything goes back to God, and it's pretty cool to see.
I have a whole episode on the faith. If you have questions about faith, like, let us know in the comments, or even if you're struggling with faith, you could let us know that as well. But right now, let's kind of go into just encouragement for other couples that may be going through this. Do you have, like, what could you say to maybe the ladies or even husbands out there that are going through this?
Well, I mean, that's so hard. For someone who is going through the OCD and anxiety, just remember that, like, you're not alone. My number one tip is to find a really good psychologist. If you need a psychologist, you can let me know and I can give you mine. All of his information. He's amazing. He's a Christian. He's wonderful. And also remember, it's very, very hard, and I still have to remind myself, when you're going through these things, like try as best as possible to like be there for your spouse because they're going through it too. And it's really hard in the moment. And I daily have to remind myself, like, to check on Luke too and make sure he's okay because, yeah, it's both of us going through it.
Mm-hmm.
What about you? Do you have any?
Yeah, I'd say probably the biggest one, especially if it's a guy helping his wife, is remember, like, we always want to fix everything, try to be fixer uppers, even though I hate fixing stuff around the house.
Yeah, I'm the handyman.
But we still want to fix something. Remember, like, we are not the therapist. We're just show love and really practice that patience skill, because it's definitely gonna test you. But the more patient you are and the more that you show love, the more that they're going to be able to get past. You'll be able to fix it, air quote, fix it.
Yeah.
In the short term.
And also, if you have a kid or multiple kids, like, it's so important that they see that in your marriage. Tegan has seen us, be there for each other. And I know that she'll have high expectations in a spouse and for herself to have that kind of marriage. And don't be afraid either to like show your kid that you're human. Tegan's seen me cry multiple times. She needs to see that maybe if she ends up having this, that it's normal and she's not alone. So don't like put yourself down if you're having a hard day and your kid sees you, struggling. Like,
yeah,
could be a lesson.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just always give each other more grace than needed, and just having open conversations. I guess what we didn't talk about in the beginning of our marriage, probably was a lot harder because I didn't know how to talk.
Yeah, at all.
How to have conversations. So that was a big learning curve for me, of just being able to share how I'm feeling and things like that.
Which I think is normal for a lot of men in general. They hold things in. Not everyone, obviously, but a lot of men, I feel like you hold things in. And so if you just communicate, it makes the biggest difference.
Yeah. And then mental health doesn't have to ruin any relationships. If anything, it could make it stronger. So lean into it and don't run away from it. So yeah, we hope this was helpful for you. And if it was, please, again, subscribe if you haven't yet, leave a review, and share this with someone you love. Our next episode, we're actually going to let you guys take a vote on this. You could put it in the comments, either here on the podcast or find us anywhere on social media, Real with the Rangels. We're thinking it could either be about her whole therapist journey and kind of the skills and tips that he gave her. It could be about, we could go whole episode just on our faith and how that helped us work through it. Or it could even be about intimacy. So let us know in the comments, and we'll see you on the next episode.